All right, so I guess first and foremost, the best thing you can say tonight that you saw was Connor Shaw was there. Um, the incident that happened to him last week, that's one of the scariest things you can hear. That somebody is collapsing and just you have no idea what's going on. But fortunately, he recovered and was able to be there today to be the celebrity guest starter. So very happy to see that. Just a great way to fire the crowd up, especially a great crowd that Carolina brought tonight, and a crowd that genuinely loves Connor Shaw, and a fan base that is very appreciative of all the things he did, even 12 years later. So, just starting off, you gotta say that first and foremost. I would think.
As soon as Connor Shaw stepped out of that car caboose, man, it was over for UK. That guy is a certified Kentucky killer. Um, I remember being up in the stands watching him drop 54 points under center, and those feel like the glory days. But Connor Shaw, man, what a warrior! A guy that truly left it out all out on the field every week when he was on the field, just embodied and Lenoris reminds me a lot of him as well. More of that kind of silent guy, lead by example, but also fiery when he needs to be.
And deadly with the football too. So you gotta love Lenoris for that. But anyway, getting back to you know going back from Carolina's uh, great past to the present. So tonight was a night I would say Carolina needed. The last 2 weeks have just been atrocious. Getting just face planted by Vanderbilt 2 weeks ago, and then just not being able to get out of your own way last week and lost to Missouri. Tonight was what Carolina needed. You start off poorly, I would still say. Kentucky takes the ball and then drives it down Carolina's throat. Carolina looks like nothing had improved, and they go right down the field and score a touchdown running the ball pretty much every single play. And then on the touchdown play, we saw something that was very upsetting. The running back for Kentucky, whose name escapes me right here, however, I've got it pulled up right here, Seth McGowan. McGowan takes the ball and in celebration throws the ball into the stands, and in doing so hits a fan in the shoulder, and it turns out that that fan was actually Lenoris Sellers' grandfather, and it causes him to need to have his shoulder wrapped in bandages. That is, and the thing here that's most disturbing is that nothing was done about that. No flag was thrown, nothing was done. McGowan stayed in the game and actually had a decent night, 17 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. But the fact that that was not called. Look, SEC officiating has been broken forever, but to blatantly miss that is just, that's unacceptable.
To miss that egregious of a call is unforgivable. And yeah, I know it doesn't impact the play, but it does impact field position on the kickoff. And one, it gets that accountability, like John mentioned, where you have that 15-yard penalty down, and one more, and he's ejected from the game. And that's a major implication for a conference game to boot. If you look at this situation, that doesn't get called, and like I said, that's a 15 out of 10 on the egregious scale of missing that call. And you buzz down the tackle on Mo Brown, the kickoff. Who from Birmingham is making these decisions? Like, I'm not going to cuss because the Lord's Day now is Sunday, but somebody needs their butt kicked in Birmingham for that.
Well, that's not something that Birmingham would buzz down for, but at the same time, you should be able to police the game effectively enough to be able to keep control of that. And by the way, it's not just about the 15 yards. That's borderline, if not completely, assault. He put a guy in bandages. His shoulder needed to be wrapped. And we're not talking about a spring chicken that was doing anything. Lenoris's grandfather is just sitting there watching the game. That is, again, one of the most egregious things I've ever seen, and just one of the most head scratching no calls I've ever seen. And look, the penalty would have been unsportsmanlike conduct, but it might have been worse. That might have warranted an ejection because you basically assaulted a fan. You're not supposed to throw the ball into the stands. Don't care who it is, don't care what the circumstances is. You don't do that. And yet, again, we've seen poor officiating over the years from the SEC. Something there is broken and something there needs to be fixed. And unfortunately, it's not getting fixed. It hasn't been fixed. I don't think it'll ever be fixed.
These guys get to just skirt their responsibility. They get to make these calls. And I was listening to Josh Pate recently, and he's great if you guys listen to him. But I heard him say something about even if they have a press conference after the game, and even if it's a canned BS response, it's still just kind of like put them in front of a mic and make them answer for these calls or lack thereof. Because if you look at like what happened with the game last week, I mean, they basically came out and said, "Oops." It was just, and
my bad.
Yeah, it was just like, my bad from Greg Sankey. I'm like, well, you're bad. They did a fake substitution and you didn't call it.
Yeah, and again, it boils down to, it's like the South Park episode making fun of BP, where the head of the BP corporation is basically just saying, "I'm sorry." That's basically what it is. And again, officiating did not play that big of a factor tonight, but that's just one of those things that you look at and you say, how can you miss that? And it's head scratching. But anyway, after that first series, Carolina comes out and Mike Shula again with one of the most frustrating series. It just felt like, and look, we've harped on this for a long time. Whether you're on with me, James, or not, we have harped on this enough. Mike Shula is, I don't think married is the right word. I think he is kind of a Siamese twin to the zone read, to the inside zone read. For whatever reason, he keeps calling it, and Carolina cannot run the football. Aside from Lenoris, nobody had over 50 yards rushing. And Carolina handed the ball off to three different guys. Matt Fuller, Oscar Attaway, and Rasul Faison. It just makes you scratch your head. Why do you keep calling something that is ineffective? And not because it's a bad run, it's a bad play. It's a bad play because Carolina's offensive line has proven it cannot block on the inside zone. So it makes you wonder, why keep doing it? But then, after that, Carolina is able to kick it into gear and is able to start doing some good things after getting down. I believe at one point it was 10-0, wasn't it? Or was it 7-7 at one point?
It was 10-7. It was 10-7.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how the first quarter ended. But then things really turned around, and the second quarter happens, and Carolina started playing to the strength of the team. The defense started making plays, affecting Cutter Boley, making his third career start. The defensive line was starting to get there. Dylan Stewart, Brian Thomas, Desmond Yu, they all went off tonight, causing in the second quarter alone 4 turnovers. Now, granted, the last turnover was on that kind of Cal Stanford play that Kentucky was trying to run, but nevertheless, 2 defensive scores. I don't care who your opponent is, but when you do that in conference, that is very impressive. It's good to see Carolina stepping up and playing complementary football. If your offense is struggling, there's nothing better to get the offense going than your defense stepping up.
we really needed a breakout game, and I've been saying this from Dylan Stewart. Hey, he's affected the play not necessarily as much in the stat sheet as you'd like this year. He had that breakout game we've been waiting on. John also mentioned Desmond Yu, another kid that was just highly coveted, DMV kid that Ohio State pushed forward. This guy's got all the tools, and you've just been waiting for that kind of light bulb moment tonight, and getting the pass rush on that play, forcing Boley to throw that duck snort that Brandon Cisse picked off. That was a real turning point in the game, kind of where you could see the volcano erupting. And tonight, it was just kind of a microcosm of the season, just not, like Shane Beamer said after the post game, not being able to play complementary football. We finally have a game where we're getting some things going offensively, and we can't tackle on the boundary against Missouri. And Vanderbilt, just a total collapse in the second half offensively without Lenore Sellers on the field.
That was a complete team collapse, if you will, when Lenore Sellers went down in that ball game.
Surrender Cobra.
Yeah. Great to see Carolina come up with 2 interceptions in this ball game. Going into the season, the Kilgore everyone thought we were going to be talking about was Jalen Kilgore, but instead, 2 weeks in a row now, Gerald Kilgore with an interception. This one, he returns 45 yards for a touchdown. Very impressive there. Brandon Cisse now stepping in, getting his first interception as a Gamecock. Great acquisition in the offseason that Carolina was able to go out and get. And you truly are glad to see a guy like that stepping up.
Anytime you can bring someone home that's in-state, that's a proven player elsewhere, Brandon Cisse, a high-level player, I want to say first-team All-ACC last year for NC State, and you can get a kid like that to come back home, you get him. Thank you, Mr. Kilgore, for making 2 great sons. It seems like if your last name is Kilgore and you play in the secondary at South Carolina, that you step up and make big plays at big times, like the old saying says. But those young men, they fly around out there they find the ball. I don't know how else to put it more eloquently than they find the ball. And they step up and make timely plays. It's good to see the light bulb come on for some guys. And there's a lot of football left to play. We can be doom and gloom. We can sit here and say, woe is me. Or we can just keep trying to go 1-0 every week.
Yeah, and I think tonight was definitely a great game to have for your confidence, especially going into a bye week where you need something good to happen. The season has not gone the way you wanted nor expected. You start out 13th in the AP, which, as we've seen this year, and as we've heard from an AP voter, basically means nothing. Because, number one, you don't know what you're going to be going into the season. And number two, AP voters don't seem to really pay attention to football, which is weird. But yeah, Carolina had a decent enough night offensively. Quite a number of different people caught passes tonight. Receivers, tight ends, running backs alike. Lenoris didn't turn the ball over, which is very good to see. One thing he's got to correct a little bit, though, is knowing when to give up on a play and knowing when to slide. Not necessarily give up on a play, but there was one instance, I think, on a 3rd down and maybe, 9 or 10, he gets the ball, and it was one of those plays where it looked like Superman came out of the phone booth right there, but then he slides and he's about 3 yards short. Now, I haven't gone back and looked at the play, but nevertheless, you got to try and get the first down. He had trouble with that last year, showed a little bit of that tonight. And then we go back to Mike Shula. There was a sequence in the second quarter where Carolina, it was, I think, after the, I think this was right after the Cisse interception, was it not? When Carolina gets the ball around midfield on the Kentucky side, by the way. That is, and we harped on this tonight, that's a spot where, and we touch on this too often, but that's a spot where Coach Spurrier would have taken the deep shot all day long, whether it be with Demir Bird, Noah Whiteside, Bruce Ellington, Kenny McKinley. He would have taken the deep shot to try and hammer the game away and put his stamp on the ball game. Mike Shula, though, goes with the inside zone. First down gains, 5 yards.
I think he went slip screen, actually.
No, I'm pretty sure it was an inside zone, if I remember correctly. It may have been.
But he did a slip screen.
It may have been the slip screen, but it went for about 5 yards.
Yeah.
Then they tried the inside. We know that the second down play was inside zone, and it went for nothing. And on third down, Kentucky brings the house because they know you're passing. Now, one thing here that's frustrating is it's an obvious passing down, and you have Lenoris under center. Why? Why not line him out of the gun?
Yeah.
If it's an obvious passing situation, why not have him out of the gun? Shula is certainly a head scratcher at this point in the season. But, in the end, it didn't end up hurt. And by the way, that was also right there when that happened. That was when Mason Love had what will hopefully be his worst punt of the year. He shanked one for about 17 yards?
17 yards.
Yeah, and it sets up Kentucky in pretty good field position right around the Kentucky 40. And that's when, that's when Kilgore had his pick 6 of the night, which I'm not going to say that was the nail in the coffin, but you just did not feel like Carolina was going to let up and falter after halftime. So it was good to see that. It was good to see Carolina kind of control a game. Maybe the second or third time that's happened this year. And good to get a win, especially in conference, because, in spite of what we saw the last 2 weeks, just about every major goal that Carolina set going into this season is still attainable.
To kind of echo John's sentiments on Mike Shula, I'll give you an analogy here. If you're at let's say you're at like a sundae bar, like an ice cream sundae bar, Mike Shula is the type of dude where all the toppings are out, all the flavors are out, and he just gets a bowl and fills it with vanilla ice cream with nothing on top of it. That's his offense. There's not a lot of window dressing. There's not a lot on there.
He might throw a sprinkle or two on there, but
maybe a cherry.
No gummy bears, that's for sure.
And it's what's maddening, and John hit on this, but it's a lack of offensive identity. It's almost like we're going to establish the run. Even if we can't, we're going to establish the run. If we still can't, we're going to establish the run. And
I'll say this, though. Carolina was able to establish a ground game in the second half. Mm-hmm. Matthew Fuller ran the ball well. Oscar Attaway and Rasul Faison up to this point, I'm sorry, they've been disappointments.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. They've done some good things. I mean, obviously tonight, Faison had 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
His 3rd on the season. Attaway has done some good, but just not enough. I mean, you need guys to be up around 85 to 100 yards a game if you're going to be effectively winning ball games in the SEC. That being said, in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter, Carolina ran the ball effectively well by using Lenoris Sellers. It felt like on just about every third down, and whether it be from about 2 to 8 yards, if 16 kept it on the inside, on the zone read, he was going to get the first down. He ran exceptionally well tonight. So you can't be too disappointed in that. You're very glad to see Carolina starting to call more design runs for Sellers, things that we saw Carolina do very effectively last year. And James, I think that if you are running Sellers, you are setting yourself up for success.
Sellers is at his best improv plays. When he is off the cuff and has to just ad-lib his way through a play, that's when you see that Lamar Jackson-esque, Cam Newton-esque come out in him. And it's unbelievable. The play where he came an inch from off the ground and hit the spin move, I think it was on the 2nd and 9.
He got tripped on that play.
Yeah. They could have called tripping on that play, too, to pile on to our friends in Birmingham. But what I was going to say, if you think about Lenoris Sellers is at his best when he is a freelancer, when he has a chance just to make plays with the football, and I think made a great point about the run game goes through 16 right now,
Yes.
for better or for worse.
Yes.
And we do have to find a way to get our young backs, I think, more involved. Matt Fuller, I see a lot of promise in. I've been singing his praises for a long time. I like what I see out of him. I want to see Jawan Howe and August Dave hit the field a little more too. We got to start looking to the future a little bit. I think at some point at the running back position, we've already done that in the receiver room with Trey Jacobs and Brian Rowe really getting in the mix. Donovan Murph playing a lot. Before tonight, he had 23.5 yards per game, which was a stat that caught me off guard because I guess I didn't realize he was playing that well, but that was up on the ribbon board I saw at the game.
You talking about Jacobs?
No, that was Donovan Murph's number.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I were kind of arguing about that earlier tonight.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, whoa, he's actually made a lot more of an impact than I thought.
He has.
Getting those young guys involved early, and I said this, and I don't want to upset. Look, Luke Doty's my guy. Yeah, I live in Myrtle Beach. Like, love Luke Doty. We also got to revisit this. Like, we need to find a way to get Cutter Woods and Aaron Nolan some reps in these games, some meaningful reps. I know it's kind of hard to, but I think maybe with 4 minutes left, you can find a way to get them out there and at least throw a short pass. But that's neither here nor there. But I'm saying at running back and at quarterback, we got to start eventually at some point kind of looking to the future because we're not going to have 16, we're not going to have 1, and we're not going to have 27 next year.
yeah, and one thing we just touched on him a little bit. One guy that really has started to emerge, maybe as your number 2 receiver, Trey Jacobs. That young man has shown the ability to be able to make some big plays happen. Mm-hmm. And I think he needs to continue to get more reps. He needs to get more touches. Obviously, I think right now, you've got Nick Harbor, 6'5", 225-pound wide receiver who runs like a gazelle. So obviously he's your number 1 guy who, by the way, is starting to catch the ball a lot more. Wasn't really involved tonight that much, but it was good to see Carolina be able to do things by spreading the ball around. There were a plethora of different receivers who caught the ball tonight, as well as tight ends and running backs. Carolina ends up with, Lenoris ends up throwing for 153 yards, completed 11 passes out of 14. You'll take that all day long if you score 35 points and 2 of which are on 2 touchdowns of which are on defense. He didn't have to be, the most unbelievable lights out thrower tonight. I mean, he was very good, very on point. Averaged 10.9 yards a throw, so you like that. But it felt like, again, his running ability as well as the way that he was throwing the ball tonight, you just felt like in the second half especially, Carolina was controlling the game. And that Kentucky was not going to be able to mount a comeback. So you feel good about that, and you just hope it's a good confidence builder going into the bye.
There's points, I'm not points off the board, but there's yards taken off the board with the 2 defensive touchdowns, and that right there takes some yards away, and
it takes possessions away.
And I'm of the opinion of you'd rather him have that game manager type game at third for 153 as opposed to throwing for slightly north of 300 against Mizzou last week and losing.
Right.
But
complementary football, as we've talked about all night, that's what you have to have. Didn't have it so much tonight from the special teams group, although Mason Love did complete a pass for 10 yards. It just was a yard short of being able to get the ball or keep the possession.
We were pretty good at having 100% passers as punters, so I'm glad to see, even though Pete Limbo is no longer on staff, I'm glad to see you're able to keep the tradition going of having a Heisman quarterback. I mean, you can't beat a 1,000 QBR or whatever that is, right? But
hey, I love Pistol Pete, but hey, let's not sleep on Joe D there.
Joe D won 2 Super Bowls as best teams coordinator. The guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I would say so.
So does your head coach.
Yeah, I would think so. So good to get a win. Good to get your first conference win. Good to get another Power 4 win, and good to just stop a potential losing streak right there before it gets going, and just to kind of feel good. There was an injury tonight on the offensive line. Remind me who that was.
It was Marquis Anderson.
Marquis Anderson, yeah. He went down tonight, so obviously got to get him healthy. Mace, Casey Henry and David Hay. Nolan Hay, I'm sorry. Both of them were out tonight. So you just hope to get those three back before going to Baton Rouge. Obviously, the bye week I think is coming at a great time because you've seen yourselves at your worst. You haven't seen yourself yet at your best. You need to find a way in this bye week to figure out how you can be at your best. Tonight, I would still say Carolina was not at its best because there were some drives out there where points were left off the board because of poor play calling or poor execution or both. So I would like to see Carolina in this bye week be able to go in, evaluate some things. Lonnie Teasley, I would say, has a lot of work to do because this offensive line cannot go to Baton Rouge and block the way it has blocked for the entirety of the season right now. So they really need to figure something out this coming week and the following.
It's a big year for Lonnie Teasley. It was when he went into this season. It's getting even more palpable the more we go. And I like the guy. He seems like an upstanding family guy.
Good recruiter.
Elite recruiter. Maybe the best recruiter on staff. But it's about the Jimmy and the Joes and not the X's and O's a lot of times. But at some point, you gotta do something. You gotta develop these guys. It doesn't make a hill of beans if you bring in 4 and 5 star talent for them to constantly be beating pass pro, for us to not be able to establish a run game. This is year 5 of the Atkins-Teasley experiment, and our patience collectively and justifiably so is wearing thin.
Yeah.
And I would say, going back to what you said about Shula, it's almost like what we've seen so far is it's almost an untenable situation with the offensive line, and I get that in his credit. But it's almost like the fire's burning out of control, and his play calling exacerbates it by throwing gasoline on the flames.
Right. It's just one of those things. Like, we've talked about this before. Some position coaches are there basically just to be recruiters. We've talked about that. Offensive line is not one of those coaches. You have got to be able to coach your guys up, develop them, and prepare them each week effectively. Otherwise, it's going to just fall apart. Now, we've talked about play calling. We've talked about running backs struggling. Well, if you don't have an offensive line that can block worth of crap, it is not going to matter at all. So that is the biggest concern for me right now going into the bye week that Carolina has got to get fixed. It's the offensive line. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have got to get that group fixed.
There's a lot that could be said, and like I said, I don't want to get on here after a convincing home win in a conference game where I thought we overall played a really well game. We played really well, but there's a lot to be desired with our offensive line play and with our offensive play calling. And I thought this hire in Shula made so much sense on paper. Was it a kind of a lazy, convenient hire? Sure. But at the same time, it made sense as a guy that's led the Carolina Panthers, led the New York Giants, calling plays. And this guy's developed some of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, you could say.
Yeah, I didn't like that they took some random Joe Schmo off of the street and said, "Hey, you want to do it? Sure, okay, you're on staff anyway. Let's go ahead and plug you in." This is somebody that has been a head coach in the SEC, somebody that's been a play caller, an offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach in the NFL. This guy has the ability to be able to call a good offense. He's taken an offense. He's coached up an NFL MVP. He's coached a team or coached an offense to a Super Bowl.
The same thing.
Yes. And there is... It's not like Mike Shula has forgotten to coach. I just think that there are some aspects there that need to get fixed in order for his system to be able to work. And that aspect overwhelmingly right now is the offensive line. Now, yes, again, we've talked about this. You want to feel good after a win, but when you still see an offensive line that is causing you to be concerned like this, it makes you worry because we are approaching the meat grinder of the meat grinder. Got to go to Baton Rouge. You got to host Alabama. You got to host Oklahoma. You got to go to A&M. You got to go to Ole Miss. It ain't getting easier.
No.
And that is how. And then, oh yeah, you got to go to A&M. Did I say that?
I think you said that already.
Okay.
But it doesn't make it any better.
Point being is that you are entering the, again, the meat grinder of the gauntlet. You better get it straightened out or it will eat you alive. And given the expectation, given the aspirations that Carolina had going into this season, if you falter and cannot, look, even if you miss the playoff, anything below 8 wins right now, given the expectation of the preseason, given the 2-0 start, I would say that would be nothing short of a major disappointment and a lot of concern going forward.
And again, this is not a let's pile on Mike Shula session, but here's kind of what causes me great concern is that there will be, like breaking news, there will be no 16 here next year.
No.
Okay? So we have to start thinking right now, yeah, let's try to somehow sneak back into the playoffs or into the playoffs for the first time ever.
Well, I wouldn't even, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I wouldn't even worry about the playoff right now. I would just say salvage a good season, a really good season, because that is still very much in reach.
And what is the plan moving forward? Because if this system, if this style doesn't work big scale with Lenore Sellers, I'm very high on Cutter Woods as a prospect. I think Aaron Nolan has a ton of potential once he figures it out. And we might be fine with one of those two young men, but we're putting a green quarterback out there next year as far as starting.
It might even be Landon Duckworth next year.
It could. And
But
that's scary thinking about a true freshman starting, and then who do you pull out of the portal that fits our scheme is I guess what I'm getting at.
yeah, but going back to this season, I would say right now, your offense is going to only go as far as your offensive line can take them. And right now, they have not been able to get very far. I mean, this is the second game with, actually, this is the third game, I believe, with multiple scores by your defense and or special teams. Mm-hmm. No, it's the second game.
South Carolina State, Virginia Tech, and this
Virginia Tech, there was just one special team score.
Oh, you said multiple
scores. But even still, you cannot rely on, yes, you can rely on complimentary football, but at some point or another, your offense is going to have to be the one to go out and get the points. And if you can't muster up more than 21 points a game, if 21 points is your ceiling, I'm looking at the rest of this schedule and I'm not seeing a win, including Coastal in the upstate school. You have got to be able to find a way to put points on the board, regardless of what field position you're working with. If you get good field position, you better capitalize on it. So, yeah, it sounds like we're beating up on a team that just won, but given the situation that Carolina is in, and given what Carolina has ahead, you have got to be able to figure it out and go out and find a way to put points on the board.
With this current offensive staff, so far our point totals have been on offense 17, 17, 17, 7, 20.
21.
20 was against Mizzou.
Correct.
So, yeah, so as of what you said to your comment earlier, 21 so far is the ceiling. That's utterly unacceptable.
Yeah, through 5 games, you can't do that. So, we've said this earlier. The bye week could not have come at a better time. So, hopefully Carolina can get something turned around here. We'll find out when we get back from Baton Rouge in 2 weeks. We'll have a show again next week. We'll just kind of rehash the whole season and just look ahead again. But hopefully, we'll be talking about maybe some potential commitments, and we'll talk about what Carolina can do to go forward positively.
I think it's really like a spoiled mentality that we can even complain about a 35-13 conference win. I think we should take Shane Beamer's advice tonight and find a little joy in that. But I will say, I don't think we're having too lofty of expectations to say we demand better with offense. And
With the talent that is there.
yes, given the talent that's there, the talent that, to our staff's credit, they brought in. They've been able to attract some talent on both sides of the ball, and also just making brilliant tweaks like getting Nick Harbor in the return game and getting Brian Rowe in the return game and Swain in punt return. But it's all about, can this staff take this talent and maximize it? And so far, like I said, at offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, they've left a lot to be desired out there. And I'm pulling for you. Listen, Mike Shula and Lon Teasley, we're pulling for you guys. We want you guys to succeed. We want you to be here. We want to win with you guys on the staff. But we need to see some long-term sustainable results and fast.
Before we sign off tonight, let's be positive about someone. Clayton White did an outstanding job tonight. I mean, there is no question about that. The adjustments that they made, the first two drives of the game, Kentucky kind of just marched downfield. They looked like Missouri against Carolina. And it looked like there were things that just were not going to get corrected. It felt like it was going to be a long night. But then all of a sudden, that defense started making plays, creating turnovers, getting stops behind the line. There were more negative plays tonight than I think in the first 4 games combined. So Clayton White did an outstanding job tonight. And I'm pulling for this, and I think we all are. Hopefully, Travian Robertson will be back at the start of the second half of this season, which starts in Baton Rouge. Hopefully, Judge Collier will be able to get some playing time. And hopefully, Carolina will be able to have a strong second half of the season, even though we're not technically at the end of the first half. But going into October, as Josh Pate has said, it's Cocktober. But man, this one is a gauntlet.
Yes, it is.
So, all right, well, hope everyone will enjoy the bye week, and we will be back soon to kind of recap the bye week and preview LSU.